Hey everybody, welcome back to Watch and Carry. So we're going to do another mod today. I've actually built this one a couple months ago and gave it to one of my buddies for his birthday. But I came across the spare parts that I used to make it and bought this used one off of eBay. This is the Casio AE1300-1AV, and then this is the 1300-8AVCF. So we're going to combine parts from these two watches. We're going to need this French NATO parachute strap in this olive drab color with this yellow center accent. Okay, and then you're going to need these strap band adapters. Now these might be hard to find. These were custom made for me by a friend of mine on Instagram. I'm going to put the description for him and all these parts in the description below, but these are 18 millimeters at this end and 22 millimeters at this end, and he's 3D printed these. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of get started here and the watch will kind of come to life. Basically, we're gonna be taking the masking and module from this guy, putting it into this guy, making a negative display filter to the bottom time display, and then adding that lug adapter and the 22 millimeter strap at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and disassemble our watch. We'll start with the black one over here. Undo the buckle. And we'll get these screws out. The one I'm working on, by the way, can be a little bit hard to find. So Casio, unfortunately, has discontinued making this watch. So most of the ones you're going to find are either old stock, sold at a premium because they know that they are popular but discontinued, or you can find used ones on eBay. This one I got off of eBay for 10 bucks because the resin glass on the front is quite scratched. So what I would recommend you do is create a save search on eBay for the title below, and that way when a new listing pops up, you can go ahead and place an order for it. There were a couple of companies that used to sell spare parts by Casio. They were an official supplier. Unfortunately, when I reached out to them, they said they no longer make this watch or the spare parts. So you'll just have to come across these when you can. The gray one, though, the gray Casio, is still in production, so that should be easy to find on Amazon or eBay. All right, so we're going to be using the masking here and the watch module. I'm going to take out the O-ring like I always do because these tend to pop out when you least expect them and easy to lose. And we'll set this case to the side. Okay, so there's our masking. Would have been so nice if you could buy this masking by itself, because this is the only one I know of that comes with those triple yellow dials. Okay, then let's go ahead and disassemble the 8AVCF. Very inexpensive watch. On a good day on Amazon, you can sometimes get these for 16 bucks. But they're readily available too at Walmart for about, I think, $20, 19 or 20 bucks. Okay, lift up on that case, go to the 6 o'clock position just like the other one, and pry up there. And you can see that the watch modules from both the black and gray Casios are exactly the same in function and in looks. The only difference between the two is really this masking here. So there's the difference between the two maskings. And the only difference you can see here is just the border of that, the border of the subdials is in yellow. Everything else is the exact same. Okay, so actually I'm going to go ahead and use the module from the gray Casio just because it's a newer watch. This looks like it's in good condition, but I don't know exactly how the seller handled their watch previously. Okay, we'll get this O-ring out. Set that to the side, and then let's take off the strap here. Okay, in this case, we're going to save this because we're going to reuse that. Go ahead and take your spring bars. These are 18 millimeters, and save those as well. Those will go on the adapters later on, and we'll have a spare strap here. Okay, now for the hard part of this job is we're going to make the bottom half a negative display. So we're going to have to cut the top of the polarized filter and remove that bottom half polarizing film. Okay, and then the top of here, these three subdials will remain the same. The bottom will be an inverted display. Essentially what we're going to be making is this. Right here. Okay. So to get started, we're going to put the masking directly on top. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind here. I'm going to make this a full negative display, including the subdials. And then I can always swap that other module I just took out of the case and put it in because I've always done a half cut negative display, but I've never done a full cut. So this will be a good opportunity to show you how to do a full cut. Full cut is actually a lot easier. So this is what I mean. Rather than having to cut perfectly across a line here and remove this bottom half and keep the top half, I will just go ahead and remove the whole thing. And that's actually a lot easier because you don't have to measure and cut at all. You just have to peel. So this watch module here, the display in front of you is basically made of 3 layers. So you're looking at it like this. If you were to turn it to the side, these are the 3 layers here. You have the center part, the back part, and the top polarizing film. And what we're going to be doing is basically removing the entire polarizing film here, replacing it with a brand new polarizing film, but then orienting the polarizing film in a certain angle that will give us the negative display. And I'll show you what that means later. So to get started, go ahead and disassemble your watch module. So let's zoom in for this. Take any kind of tool here and just go to the tabs on the side. There are these metal tabs that you can just pull apart. Okay, these are them. And you'll notice the displays start to disappear because the battery is getting separated. Okay, the tabs may want to get stuck again, so you'll just have to work at it until they all come off. And that looks pretty good right there. Okay, once these are all off, you're going to look at this part, okay, and look at the top left here. There is going to be a spring. I'm going to go ahead and remove the spring because it's very common for these to pop up. You don't have to, just keep track of it. That's what the spring looks like. Set that spring to the side and set that piece of the watch module to the side, and you're left with this. Okay, go ahead and flip this guy over. Take a non-metal tool and lift up on the circuit board. Kind of like that. Okay, be very gentle. When you flip it over, you might have this white piece on the back. Okay, we're going to take this off and set this to the side. And then your circuit board, you can also set that to the side as well. Okay, now we're left with this piece here. Okay, what you're going to want to do is turn this over like this. Okay, you might have some numerals pop up as you're putting pressure from behind. That's completely normal. Okay, go ahead and lift with your left or right index finger from behind and pull in this direction. Okay, and then with your other index finger, push up on the display from the bottom, like that. Okay, and then flip it over and do the same thing again. And what you're basically doing is separating the display from the plastic case like that. There's the display, the 3 layers that we were talking about. Set this guy to the side, go to the plastic housing. Now you will have this housing here. You're going to have a piece of foam here at the top, very important part, and another white strip here at the bottom. Okay, go ahead and separate those. Again, I'm just separating here because I want to keep track of my parts. Okay, then you're going to have this opaque piece of plastic. Okay, go ahead and set that to the side as well. All right, so the part we're going to be working on is this part right here. I'm going to take a clean microfiber towel and kind of lay out the materials you're going to need. We're going to need some Goo Gone. Okay, guitar pick is very helpful, or a unused credit card would also be nice. A small pin, something smaller than a clothespin would be good. So this is a pin coming off of my Swiss Army knife. Okay, and then your microfiber towel, and then your Goo Gone, which is going to be in here. This is what the Goo Gone bottle looks like. Okay, like I said, we're going to separate that layer. Now the layers, like I mentioned, are stuck together. The polarizing film that we're removing on the top is actually glued to the middle layer. So we want to remove this area here, but we're going to be left with glue residue. And so that's what we're going to use the Goo Gone for, is to kind of clump up that residue and clean off this screen so we have something nice to lay the new polarizing film on top of. So, also Q-tips you're going to be needing. So take your Q-tips, go ahead and pre-soak them inside of the Goo Gone. Okay, and then grab one that's soaked and just go around the edges of the display here. Okay, basically we're getting the Goo Gone into the cracks, so that way you can start to loosen up the glue. Okay, just like that, and I'll set that to the side. Okay, I'm going to let this sit for about 5 minutes and then we'll come back. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. Okay, go to your display, set your Goo Gone carefully to the side. Go ahead and take your pin. And then what we're going to do is, again, the 3 layers, you're going to take the pin and insert it between the 2 layers here. And then what that's going to do is just pry up a little bit on that polarizing film. Then we're going to switch to our guitar pick and wedge out the rest of that film. So to get your clothespin, you're going to drag it across the screen here until you feel it drop off onto the middle layer. So we're going like this, we're dragging it, and then you're going to feel it step off onto that middle layer, and then that's where you insert it. Now, you don't have to worry too much about scratching this top layer because it's getting removed, but of course, I don't want you pushing really hard while we're doing this. So I'm lightly dragging it, and you're going to hear it step off and a click. One more time. Okay, clicks. I'm going to push down where it clicks and separate the 2 layers. Okay, you'll notice I am putting this pin away from my fingers on the left so I don't accidentally poke myself if I miss. Once you see a little bubble pop up, you'll be good. So this is what you want to look for. Trying to focus this in. Okay. See how I made a little air bubble there? Okay, so we're going to push the pin horizontal to the display, make the bubble a little bit bigger, and then back out. Don't lift up or down on the pin because that could damage the display parts underneath. Go ahead and take your guitar pick. I'm going to dip this in a little bit of Goo Gone so it's a little bit wet, and then I'm going to insert this in the bubbled area and just start working at the display to remove that top polarizing film. Okay, again, as you're holding the display, you might have these black characters popping up. That's completely normal. We're going to reset the watch anyways. So again, I'm dipping in my Goo Gone. And then when we reset the watch, that will all disappear. Okay, and I'm just going side to side, horizontal, like this, with the guitar pick. Okay. Get the Goo Gone again. Again, we're applying a little bit of force to the guitar pick, but I'm not rushing this. The Goo Gone and the wedge of the pick should be doing most of the work, so you want to go slow because the display in general is quite fragile. Okay, let's get this edge down here. Go back to this other edge. You'll notice some of the glue right there start to come off. Just wipe that on your towel, keep going. Now we're going to the last edge here. Okay, and you'll feel it come off. We're going to save this piece. This is polarizing film that we just removed. Okay, and now we're left with the two layers that we talked about. Okay, go ahead and set your Goo Gone off to the side. Take this film, clean it up a bit because this is going to be our template to trace the new polarizing film to go over our display on the left there. So dry it up a bit. Set this guy to the side. We can take our clothespin, put this away. We're not going to need that anymore. Okay, now take a look at your display here. It's definitely going to look dirty. It's going to look clumpy. That's all the glue there. So we're going to take a brand new Q-tip with Goo Gone and brush it generously over the entire display to saturate the whole thing. And the Goo Gone will start to clump up that glue nicely. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm going to let that sit for another 5 minutes. It's just going to make our work a lot easier later on. And then guitar pick, you can go ahead and clean that guy off and put that away because we're not going to need that anymore as well. All right, guys, I'll chime back in 5 minutes. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes, so actually I'm going to save some time here. Put my Goo Gone to the side. Okay, and let's grab our polarizing film, the used one, and we'll grab the brand new one. Okay, this is 0 degree linear polarizing filter, essentially the exact same material as this right here. But what's important here is how you orient the filter when you cut it to get the desired effect. I want you to see, this is what we removed, right? This is our display. When I put the polarizing film in the same orientation that I cut it out, the screen below appears white, right? Now when I turn this 90 degrees to the right, what do we get? It's completely black. Okay, the black is that negative effect. It's this type of effect when you turn that filter 90 degrees on the bottom here. Okay, so when we cut our new filter, If I lay it in this orientation, okay, you'll see it's clear, it's bright, it's just like the factory one before we cut it. Now if I rotate this 90 degrees, we get that black effect, which is what we want for this type of mod. So it's very important to know which orientation. The other thing to consider is, what if my filter is this way or this way? Well, if you do it this way, you'll start to notice a rainbow-like color. You see how I get purplish, green. Okay, the colors are not completely uniform. They're kind of blending together. That tells you you're on the wrong side. So flip that over. And then white tells you that's normal, but we want negative, so we're going to go to this. That's kind of how to figure out which side to cut and which orientation to cut. Okay, kind of like that. So now that I know I have to be in this orientation, you can either do two things. You can either leave your screen there, dry it up first, and then put this over. But since this is still saturating and we're going to clean it up later, I'm actually just going to take the filter that I cut and I'm going to put it directly over this filter as a template. Okay, now this linear polarizing film here on my left hand is actually made of 3 layers as well. We have the polarizing film in the middle, we have a protective backing on the bottom, and a protective backing on the top. The backing on the bottom, when it gets peeled, it reveals a adhesive layer here. This part over here, when it gets removed, there's nothing adhesive over here. So the adhesive side obviously is going to go down into the screen. Okay, go ahead and take your cutout filter. We know that we're in this orientation already because we did that earlier. Line it up and take note of the long and the short side. Okay, so this is the long side. This is the long side, short side, short side. So we're going to be lining it up like this. Okay, go ahead and take a Sharpie and trace around the border. Just like that. Okay, go ahead and remove this old one. Set that to the side. Okay, grab a pair of scissors and cut out this film. Oh, actually, before you do that, go ahead and take your Sharpie and label T here. T is to remind us that, remember, this is made of 3 layers, that we're working on the top layer right now, so that way you don't lose track of which is the adhesive side. Okay, so I labeled a T there. Now we're going to cut this out. Try to cut it just inside of the Sharpie, so it's a little bit shorter than what you traced, because we want this to be the exact size as the polarizing film that we removed from the factory watch. If it's too large, then what's going to happen is it's going to get pinched by the masking, and then you'll start developing air bubbles because it won't sit flush on the display. Okay, so we have our new polarizing film cut. I'm going to touch this up just a bit. Cut off any remaining Sharpie marks that you might have. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, that should look very similar to the one you removed. If it's slightly off, like maybe the edges aren't completely straight across or going to the side, don't worry too much as long as it's pretty close, because when we reinstall this, the borders of the masking here on the top and on the sides are going to block those imperfections anyways. But it should be close. You don't want it too short. So take this, carefully set that aside, make sure it doesn't get bent. We're going to go back to our screen here that's been sitting. Take another Q-tip, and we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to work that Goo Gone with a little more agitation now. So take your Q-tip, move in circles, Make sure it's nice and wet with the Goo Gone. Okay, once you feel like you have a lot of clumps collecting, go ahead and take your microfiber towel and wipe those off in one direction. Okay, it might get even dirtier. Okay, that's all the glue that's still on there. Take your Q-tip again, saturate the whole thing. And once it's saturated, go ahead and rub again. This is going to take a while. It could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes depending on, you know, how fast you're moving and how well you saturate this. But this should be completely clean. Now, if you listen while I'm rubbing right now, you don't really hear anything, right? When you start getting very clean and the glue is completely removed, which is what we want, you're going to be hearing a squeaky sound. So once it starts to squeak, you kind of know that you're close to finishing. So just to save video here, I'm going to pause and we'll come back. So again, we're just saturating, get clumps, wipe away. Saturating, clumps, wipe away. Okay, we'll chime back in. Okay, I've been at this for about 10 minutes now, so it's just starting to get squeaky here. And you'll feel that there's a little bit less resistance on the Q-tip. Okay, there's our squeak. Pay attention to the edges of the watch too, or the display, because those tend to be harder to get at. Okay, let's clean this guy off. Okay, and then go ahead and hold up the display and check for any glue. So this might be hard to capture on camera, but I want you to look. It looks clean right there, but then when I start moving it to the sides, okay, you see right there, 10, 11, and 12 o'clock, there's still a lot of glue there. Still quite a bit here in the corners. Like I said, the corners tend to accumulate lots of glue here on the corner. So the center looks clean, so you got to work on those corners still, okay? So we'll keep working at it. I'm going to pause here. Okay, still working at it. You can pick it up like this, turn it in the light. If you see some glue, put a little mark there with the Goo Gone. Put a little mark here, and then when you lay it down, you can see where you put your watermarks or your Goo Gone marks, and you can just concentrate on those areas. I think we're almost done here. And so the reason why you want to get this really pristine is because just like a black car, imperfections really show up much more on a black screen than a positive display gray screen. So it may look like nothing now, but once we put the polarizing film and make this black, those imperfections will easily show up, and you'll basically have to disassemble the watch and re-clean this anyways. So spend some time. Again, this is the longest part, but once you're done here, you're pretty much home free. So hang in there. Okay, I think this should be good. Let's give it a dry here. This is a very, very fine microfiber towel in gray that I'm using, so that might be a little bit better than your fluffy microfiber towels. The fine ones also tend to have less threads that kind of loosen and get stuck to the display, so just look for those. Okay, switch sides here. think I can set this goo gone to the side. Okay, dry your gloves a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at our display now. Okay, rotate it in the light, and you can see that, well, we got a little bit more at that 11 o'clock, but everything else looks really good. So let me just clean that up just a little bit more. I think we got it. Oops. Let's lift it up again. And this looks completely clean. All right, so we are good to go. So take your Goo Gone, set that aside. Take your microfiber towels, set those aside as well. Okay, take a clean side of your towel and then just take the edges, the four edges, kind of lightly dab them here just in case there's anything wet there. Clean the back of the display. And one more time on the front here. Watch will get a nice pine smell as well, lemony smell from the Goo Gone. Okay, looks good. If there's a little bit of dust, don't worry about that. We can take care of that later. So I'll set that module off to the side. Okay, at this point, I'd recommend you go ahead and change your gloves because the Goo Gone tends to stay pretty easily, and if you touch the inside of the case by accident, it's very tough to get that Goo Gone off without using some other chemicals and abrasives which could scratch the inside of the display. So I just like to take the precaution, take a brand new set of gloves and use these. And the reason why I'm using gloves here is just it limits fingerprints to the display and then just getting your oils all over the circuit board. It's not necessary. I've done mods without them, but it just makes things a little bit easier and cleaner. Okay, so now what we're going to do is reassemble our watch module. Or I'm sorry, we're going to put on the polarizing film. Just get a clean microfiber towel here. Okay, so here is our screen minus the polarizing film. We're going to take the one that we cut out before. So that's this guy. Make sure that that letter T that we marked is facing you in the right orientation. Okay, and then we're going to just clean off any dust that we see on our display. So it looks pretty good. I'm going to set the display to its side like that. Take your polarizing film, turn it to the side like that in the right orientation. Okay. All right. And then we're going to grab our blaster here, our air blaster. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the backing of this filter to reveal the adhesive. Then we're going to do a quick blast of air here on the display to remove any dust and then lay the filter on top, all in one motion. So that way we can kind of limit the amount of dust that gets trapped in between. Thought I saw a fingerprint here. Let me take a look really quick. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we'll set that down like that and take our filter like that. Okay, peel the backing. Try not to touch the adhesive backing. Quick blast of air. And lay your filter down. Once it's lined up, go ahead and push down in the center gently. Okay, touch the four corners to kind of set it, and then now what we're going to do is kind of work out the air bubbles. So I'm going to grab a clean Q-tip here, and I'm just going to push up on these air bubbles from the inside out like that. Now you'll notice that there is some numerals that are appearing underneath the display, some odd colors while you're doing this. That's completely normal. And they will disappear once we reset the watch. I'm applying light to medium pressure here while I'm doing this. Some people use non-adhesive polarizing film, so that might be actually a little bit easier because then you don't have to worry about air bubbles being trapped sometimes. So it just depends on what you're using. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then what we need to do is remove the top protective layer from the polarizing film. So carefully take your tweezers, lift up on that, if you can see that, and try to limit contacting the polarizing film below it. Okay, very delicate here, just like that. So you can throw that part away. Okay, now what we can do is see any remaining air bubbles much more clearly. So, yep, so we got one right there. Push from the inside out using that Q-tip. Work it out. We got another one here. Okay, I'm going to pause here and just save time and just again look at the air bubbles, rotate the display in the light, and just try to work these all out. Again, these numerals that appear, don't worry about them. Okay, so I don't know if the video stopped there. It's been about 10 minutes. I think I've worked out most of these air bubbles. Go ahead and take a clean microfiber cloth, kind of clean the outside of it one more time. It's okay if these numerals pop up, that's fine. Okay, then what we're going to do is lay it down. So you need to figure out which is the top and which is the bottom now, because it's kind of hard to figure out. So just lift it up in the light, the filter, and look for those very faint 3 subdials at the top. That's your 12 o'clock. Okay, so the 12 o'clock is facing up right now. We're going to take our plastic housing like so. And if you look at the plastic housing, you'll notice that there is a 2 clips here at the top. One and two, and then a third one here at the bottom. 1, 2, and 3. The 2 are the 12 o'clock position. So we're going to put our 12 o'clock on the display over that one. Go ahead and insert it gently in by putting the 12 o'clock in first underneath those 2 clips, and then resting it on the bottom clip, and then pulling back on the bottom clip with your index finger, and then resting it underneath that other clip on the bottom. So now 3 clips 1, 2, 3 should be on top of the black screen like that. Okay. We're going to flip this guy over. So make sure you don't have anything sharp beneath. Okay, again, 12 o'clock is on your left-hand side. We're going to take our 2 pieces of white strips here and insert it with the longer one going to the 12 o'clock position. You're going to insert it on its thin side down. Okay, and then the other one as well. Okay, go ahead and tap those down gently so they're flush with the white plastic housing like that. Okay, that looks good. Then you're going to take the opaque piece of glass here. Okay, now with the opaque piece of glass, you're going to kind of hold it and you're going to notice a couple things when you turn it to its side. Let's put this over the gray so you can see. Okay, on one end of the opaque piece, you'll notice that it's flat all the way across. Even these nubs are flat here at the corner. On another side, you're going to see that the nubs are actually pronounced. They rub off on you. Okay, the nubs that are pronounced should face up to your face. So like this, and then put it like this down in the display. The big fat nubs should be towards the 6 o'clock position, while the thin nubs that are pointing up should be to the 12 o'clock position. Okay, take your piece of foam next, or this white square, okay, and lay it down. You'll see that there is a projection here and a projection here. Those should line up with here and here. It doesn't matter if it's this way or this way, but the black pieces of foam should be facing you at this point. Take your control board or your circuit board, okay, and I believe the way this goes is, yeah, okay. Take your circuit board. Again, this is 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. These 2 contacts should be towards the 6 o'clock and they should be facing you. You should not be seeing the black square. The black square should go down. So put this down. You'll notice right here and right over here a white tooth from the bottom parts will pop up. That's a good sign. That's going to hold it in place. Go ahead and lightly tap this down. Okay. Then we're going to take this part here. Okay. Okay, you're going to flip this over like so. Okay. And then take something thin and you're going to look for this button that says AC. There's a hole next to it, and then right above that AC hole there's another hole. Put your toothpick in there and insert up like that, so you know which hole your toothpick is on right there. Okay, that's where you're going to insert your spring, so leave that inserted. Take your spring. Now your spring is going to have one end that is skinny and then one end which is thick. I'm grabbing it by the thick end and I'm inserting the skinny end first into that toothpick hole like that. When you drop it in, the spring will fall flush and the spring should not be projecting above the white plastic. See how it's flush? Okay. Now you're going to take this, carefully set it down like that. The spring will pop back up momentarily as it hits the material below. Okay. Orient your circuit board like such. Okay. We have 2 contacts here. We have 2 contacts here, so they need to match up. So take your circuit board, flip it over, and insert this back over like that. Go ahead and look for those clips at the top and start to clip them down so that way the 2 halves meet and stay secure. You should be hearing some clicking. Okay. Once you do that, you'll notice the display kind of come to life because the battery has been reattached, but now we've got all these random characters all over the place. We need to hard reset the watch. So flip it back over, take a paper clip, bend a paper clip into a horseshoe like that. You're going to go back to that hole that says AC, which is right here. You're going to insert one end into that hole, and the other end is going to touch a piece of metal beside that hole, so like this. It helps if the one end of the paper clip is longer than the other, kind of like that. So the longer end goes into the AC hole, and then touch a piece of metal. And that should set the clock back to midnight or 12, and then your display has now been reset. Okay, we're going to take our masking, test fit it, and put it right over and see how that looks. So there we go. Now we got that full negative display. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we'll set those parts to the side for now. Okay, let's go ahead and clean up our area. We are in the home stretch, which is good. Okay, take your case. Orient your case like this with the lettering in this orientation. Turn this over. Okay, go ahead and lift up. Give it a blast of air to clear out any dust that might have got in there. Set that back down. Okay, take your watch module. Set this over here like this, and your masking. Okay, go ahead and give a quick blast of air. Okay, then you're going to flip this guy over, insert the masking like such. Take your watch module and insert it as well, like that. Okay, take a thin tool, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have to pull inward on these contacts. And then press with your other finger. This will allow the pushers to properly interact with the watch module. Okay, turn it over quickly. Make sure you have the right orientation. Turn it back. Take your O-ring. Okay, if your O-ring looks dry, you can go ahead and take a little bit of Hops No. 9 oil or any other lubricating oil like this. Massage it between your two fingers and run it through the length of the O-ring. Set that O-ring on top. Go ahead and dry your fingers off. And we're going to reinsert this O-ring back in the correct orientation. Now with the 1200s and 1300s, if you look here, right at the top, you'll notice that there is a small nub. I don't know if you can capture that there. See, there's a tiny little projection right there at the top, and there's none here. That's your 12 o'clock. So take your O-ring, insert it back where you found it, and then adjust it so it sits in its trough properly and flat. This is going to help maintain your water resistance. Make sure there's no debris on the O-ring because you want a good seal. Now, because we're working with the 1300 here, I like to take the 1300 case back. Well, I guess they're both actually 1300, so it really doesn't matter which case back you use. This one looks a little bit more scratched. A lot of these case backs from the factory, brand new, have scratches, unfortunately. It's the only blemish I've found consistently, so just take whichever one you want. Orient it like this. Okay, 12 o'clock here. Put the case back down, and we're going to take our 4 screws. You should have 8 screws free right now because we disassembled 2 cases. The screws are interchangeable, so it doesn't matter which ones you're using. Okay, go ahead and loosely rethread. Okay, flip over. take a look between the case back and the case back and the case, and look for that O-ring. You should not be able to see it. If you do see it, it means it's being pinched. You have to reset it and then re-screw down the case back. Now you can fully tighten. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, kind of like that. Great. Go ahead and push the sound. That's the bottom left button here. That tells us that our spring was reinserted. The spring actually makes a connection between the case back, where the speaker is, and the circuit board, and allows the battery to power that speaker. If you don't hear the sound, it could mean the speaker is turned off. But because we reset the watch, you should be able to hear it. So if you don't hear it, you might have to open up and repeat again and reattach that spring. Okay, we're going to flip this over. Again, 12 o'clock here. We're going to take our two adapters. So these are really well made. These are 3D printed again. 18mm spring bars. And you're going to need your lug tool. Go ahead and insert the spring bars into both of the adapters. Okay, insert one end of the adapter into the lug of the watch. The other one is resting on top. Go ahead and pry inward and listen for a click and give it a jiggle to make sure that it's seating properly. Go ahead and invert. Okay, that looks good. Now we got our lugs. Okay, now what we're going to do is take our strap. Now, depending on your strap, some of the straps that you can buy are actually in a circuit, meaning they are completely enclosed in some type of loop, in which case this type of adapter will not work because there's no way to get the strap inside unless you have a free end. This is a cheap French NATO strap. It came pre-glued like this. Okay, so I actually was not able to attach it here. So what I did was I took my hobby knife and I cut away at the glue and freed one end of it. Now, because I did that, it could come loose on my wrist, but what I'm going to do after this video is actually re-glue it after I've run it through. So go ahead and take your strap, whichever one you have, thread it through the 12 o'clock position first, pull it through, and then insert the other end into the other adapter like so. Okay, usually what I find from my wrist, about 1/4 of the way from here to here is an ideal position on my wrist. Okay, and then I need to take the piece of metal here that's going to attach to the clasp of the other side of the strap and put it like that. I might move this just a little bit more. Okay. Now, before we do anything else, let's run through our functions here. Looks good. Okay, and backlight. Backlight looks kind of cool in the negative. Shows up orange. Okay, and then we'll take off the plastic and take a look at our work. Looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and take off the watch I'm wearing right now. Set that guy down. Put this guy on. Okay, there you go. Okay, I need to set the time and date, but now we got that gorgeous full negative display, black background, and look at those numerals, how well they pop. And I'm glad I went full negative on the top because you can see how well the top pops as well. So let me show you a half negative, a non-negative, and then the negative display. So full negative over here. This is a half negative. negative on the bottom, normal on the top, positive on the top. And then here we have one with a colored filter, so just ignore that, but no negative display on the bottom there. And so you can just see, it depends on the lighting. In general, usually positive displays are easier to see, but depending on the type of polarizing filter you use, it can really help to either make the blacker part of the display black and the numerals brighter. So I really like the way this looks here. So 3 different takes. Okay, and then as always, we check our work. We like to rotate the watch up, down, left, and right. And we want to check all of these 4 windows, 1, 2, 3, 4, to make sure we don't have any exposed screen. I should not be seeing any of this gray colored screen on the edges. If you do see it, you may ignore it, but it bothers me because that tells me that we cut our polarizing film too short. All right, guys, so that'll do it for today's mod. This one's a little bit lengthy anytime you do with negative, but really cool. Gives your watch a unique look. And then look at that that French NATO. This is just a cheap strap too. Some of you might have these really nice NDC straps that are a much better shade of olive drab. And I think it just complements really well. The light matte gray finish I think goes really well with olive drab. And then look at that yellow right there in the strap. It goes right into the yellow of the countdown timer label. And then of course picks up the yellow of the triple subdials. And then also there's also a slightly yellow tinge or gold tinge to the numerals and the indices here at the top, and that again is picked up by that yellow. So I think it does a really good job. Okay, let me show you the back side of the watch here so you can see how the strap works. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's video. Again, check down below for all the parts that were used. Depending on where you are located, especially if you're outside the US, these parts might be harder or easier to find. Any questions, put them down below, and if you could subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. And as always, have fun, and we'll see you guys on the next one.